US President Joe Biden says his administration will restore trade and investment with the African continent, delivering a message to the African leaders at the 2021 AU summit. Biden said that the US stands ready to partner with Africa in solidarity, support and mutual respect. This is a departure from his predecessor, Donald Trump, who had very little interest in building a relationship with Africa. Let's talk more about the US-Africa relations with Professor Yossi Mekelberg, Associate Fellow at London's Policy Institute, Chatham House. Prof, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. So how big of a promise is this? How real of a start is this for US-Africa relations after 4 years of the Trump administration?
Good evening. I think we see the beginning of the departure from 4 very difficult years on so many levels, whether internally, domestically in the United States and internationally. And I think the terms that you quoted from President Biden, so important, the issue of solidarity, of shared vision, of mutual respect, of working together, because this is exactly what we were missing in the last 4 years. So this is the first step forward. Then we have to look into the tangible issues and how the relation between Africa as a continent, at the same time also on bilateral level dealing with different issues, going to pan out. But I think the fact that President Biden decided to send a message, he even expressed that he would like to be in person next time that the African Union meets, is the kind of messaging of multilateralism that we all would like to hear.
And he speaks, Joe Biden, in that message to leaders of the African Union of growing trade and investment that advances peace and security. What does Africa need most from a new United States administration?
And again, I think in the name of mutuality, in the name of respect and working together, it's the idea that the West and the United States are not going to dictate to Africa what's good for Africa, but having a conversation, having an honest dialogue about the kind of investment which fits Africa. And again, on the one way we talk about Africa as one unit, but also we have to look at different regions and specific countries, specific issues that varies, as you know better than me, in Africa. But the needs for investment, the needs, for instance, not to let the multinationals to do whatever they like, but working for the people of Africa in a way that increase standard of living. We are in the middle of pandemic and dealing with health issues, not only the coronavirus, because there are other issues, working with the pharmaceutical industry. All of these issues needs to be dealt in a way that benefit not only the multinational cooperation, but first and foremost Africa and the African people.
And Professor Mekelberg, as you rightly point out, the United States has a reputation for not only interfering but taking over when it does indeed have relations with countries, especially in Africa and various other parts of the Middle East where it's been involved in the last few decades. How does Joe Biden walk that line when on the continent, as things stand, there's already a sense of wariness about American involvement at both economic and diplomatic political levels?
Let's not underestimate the task that Joe Biden has. He entered probably as an American president one of the toughest times in American history, whether it's kind of the scorched earth left by Trump on so many levels, and add to this pandemic and the economic results, the consequences of the pandemic. So within the next few years, the task is massive. But if he is true to his word, then there must be a change in the attitude and working in dialogue with respect and not try to impose, not to work in a way when intervening or when getting involved in conflict, and there are quite a few of them around, whether it's in Yemen or in Ethiopia and in other places, in which working with people instead of trying to impose a solution that fits only American interests. Because at the end of the day, the lessons from the past is it serves U.S. interests when it serves also the local interests. Otherwise, it's not sustainable.
Just on the local then, Donald Trump in 2016, in the run-up to that election, the great part of his appeal was that he had a very strong domestic focus, right? When you look at the way things are going as far as the coronavirus pandemic, the United States is the worst affected country as far as deaths and infections. This is also now affecting their unemployment numbers, which just this week, in fact yesterday we learned, are worsening further. Will Americans not demand more of a domestic focus from the new president, given the problems at home?
On the one hand, you're right. The pressures will be to concentrate on America, but if one of the lessons actually we learned from the current pandemic, that's whatever happens in one country affects other countries for better and for worse. So I think the lesson has to be actually the opposite of the kind of the ideas that came with Trump of America first. If America is first, it means it's first also in leading the world, if ensuring that the values of the United States are shared with other countries, and it will only be shared when it works together with respect and in honest dialogue and as an honest broker with other countries. Otherwise, it will achieve exactly the opposite. In a globalized world, working together serves everyone. Working separately at the end of the day doesn't do favors to anyone.
Final question then, Yossi Mekelberg. Joe Biden also made a reference in his address to the AU to democratic rule, and he also mentioned the rights of LGBTQI people. Now, we know the African continent, some of the countries still have many anti-gay laws, and democratic rule is not necessarily respected by all. Do you expect that to be more tricky to navigate, more slippery, if you will, than the issues of trade and investment?
I think it is, and I think this is something which is very important to drive home the message of equality for everyone, and Joe Biden said it in his message yesterday, whether on ethnic background or LGBTQI background, all of this needs to be addressed. Again, being non-partisan in many ways, believing in multilateralism doesn't mean that the United States is going to abandon this kind of values. No, it has to be in an honest building this trust that the United States come to countries wherever they are, not only in Africa, and say, this is something that matters to us. This is part of progress in which every human being is equal to their rights. No one is persecuted for whatever reason. And I think this should be part of an honest dialogue between the United States and country where these rights are not respected.
Professor Yossi Mekelberg, Associate Fellow at Chatham House in London. Good to speak to you, sir. Thank you. Still ahead.